All right, let's start the interview.
Tell me who you are and what Parkside pressure washing is all about.
So my name is Justin Panalone. I'm the owner and operator of Parkside Pressure Washing. So, when someone gives me a ring, I'm the only guy you're dealing with. Parkside Pressure Washing is really about customer advocacy. I have found that the biggest part, at least the hurdle that a lot of people in this industry run into, is that the customers need to be well informed about the services you're providing, as well as the processes involved, real world expectations. I hear it all the time. The last guy promised me this. And I think that's a mistake to promise anything. But I also think it's also a mistake to not be realistic of what to expect. If your siding hasn't been washed for a while, for example, it's very likely it's oxidized. And with that, it can dry blotchy. And I just think wholeheartedly that if the customer doesn't know that up front, then you're doing a disservice. A lot of
Uh,
times it's more than just a cleaning. It's usually a restoration if you want it to look close to perfect.
you use like soap and scrub and all that kind of stuff.
It depends upon the application, but there is a cleaning solution that's used depending upon what we're trying to accomplish. Generally, a soft wash does not involve any type of scrubbing, but if you're getting into the restoration side of it, there could be a fair amount of elbow grease, if you will, that would be used to achieve, the result that you're looking for.
Parkside started as an add-on to a lawn and landscape business. How did that initial demand from mowing customers to turn into its own dedicated company?
So in about 2019, there was just this huge demand for house washing and pressure related services in general. I got a lot of feedback from customers saying, hey, too bad you don't do this. Do you know a guy? And it started small as I didn't know anyone. For one, it wasn't that big at that time around here. Like, sure, there's established companies, um, but it's just not the popularity, I guess, of the service was not what it was or what it is now. So it started off with me just doing like patios and walkways. Then it turned into house washing very quickly. And I wanted to build a brand like my other company, the lawn guys, had a brand of like, I joke with my customers, like, I have a sickness, like, it has to be done right, or I just won't do it. And, you'll have to find someone else if it can't be done right to the industry standard. And I'm putting my name on it. So it has to be as close to perfect as we can get. So I felt that Parkside needed its own identity as opposed to someone says, okay, hey, the lawn guys, oh, do you do pressure washing as well? Yes. Who do I make the check out to? And it's like, well, back then you would make it out to the lawn guys, but now it's you make it out to Parkside. So just giving
You
it
got
its
that
own
DBA, you got
identity.
a whole different entity.
It's a different DBA, separate tax ID number. It's totally separate. The only thing that's the same is me and the phone number.
What made you decide this was worth building a separate brand around rather than just keeping it as an extra service?
The demand. The
Yeah,
demand
just kind
was
of like
was huge
skyrocketed.
at that time. It was like just like that pre-pandemic, it just exploded, at least for me.
You offer everything from soft roof washing to solar panel cleaning to window cleaning. Walk me through how you decide the right approach for a job before you ever touch the property. Like some customers will think that they need, but you might catch some like details or something that they haven't really noticed. Like what like is your process to make sure that your customers thrilled above and beyond?
That starts usually with the initial phone call. So I try to get a sense for what they want. Um, Me personally, I don't try to get crazy on selling them multiple services unless I think it's warranted. Like if you're trying to get a certain result, let's say, for example, you're trying to sell your house and your gutters look terrible because they have what's called tiger striping on them. And it's basically where it's an electromagnetic process, at least so I've read, where their non-organic staining gets on the gutters, right? So you're already getting a house wash generally, and people say, oh, the gutters are still dirty. Well, technically they're not, because all the organic stuff has been removed, right? So now this is moving into that restoration realm, moving toward what do they need. So if your result is make this house look as great as you want or as possible to sell, then really a soft roof wash, generally speaking, is not going to help you, because it can take months depending on how bad and how soiled the roof is. But that house wash and that gutter cleaning and brightening will be like same day results. Okay, so
That makes
it's
sense.
kind of like find out what the customer needs and what they want, and try to figure out what their expectation is right off the rip. To be totally honest, I generally don't have time to, do a great job with everything. And then they're like, hey, can you add on the roof, or can you add this on? Just the schedule is so tight that I don't have time for it. And that's partially why I don't try to sell multiple services, because I'm so busy.
And your integrity with it as well.
Correct.
You're not trying to give off like an upsell. Or you see TV shows like people at like McDonald's or Burger King, like, oh, try to get them to buy the large fry and everything, when they really don't need that kind of thing. Like, you're trying to do what the customer has as a goal in the end mind, to get them happy for what they need. When they
Correct.
think that
It's
they
like,
could just want a lower service.
what's your desired outcome is basically what I'm trying to get at right from the get-go.
What is a job you have done that you are especially proud of, and why does it stick with you?
So I did a multiple service job last summer that had a lot of logistical challenges. For example, the house was on well water, and generally you don't use well water, especially here, because the water's kind of hard. And with some of the cleaning solutions, that can cause flash rusting. So on that, I just won't do it. Like, if you're on well and you want to take that chance, that is totally your prerogative as a property owner. Just, I'm not going to be the guy that's going to do it. So I had to arrange to have water delivered, which is something I do a fair amount of. I have multiple water storage containers that I drop off at properties. I have people that I use that deliver the fresh water. And on top of that, there was a massive deck on this property. I mean, it was like 30 by 60. It was just a massive cedar deck, and it was a lot of cleaning solution. And just that alone, the rinsing had used almost like 700 gallons of water. So I had estimated to be 2 trips of the water to be refilled, and I was pretty spot on with that. Also, another challenge is that the house was stained cedar, and it was not, your typical vinyl or aluminum siding, excuse me. And that takes a different cleaning solution. I always like to go with what the manufacturer recommends. A lot of manufacturers do make their own cleaning solution that they recommend, and it helps maintain their warranty. And I always try to go with that. It was a process that had to be spread out over a couple of weeks, just due to the customer's schedule. And like with window cleaning, because this was a house wash, roof wash, deck wash, and window cleaning. The house was about 4,000 square feet, so no small feat, and it had 96 windows that were all French paned. So just the window cleaning alone, took me a day and a half. So all that, right? All that's done. Set the expectation up front that, hey, the roof is not going to be clean, and there was some significant moss growth on it. So if the customer's concerned, that following season, I'll come do a free assessment, and I'll say, yes or no, this needs another treatment. And if it was my bad, like I didn't put enough on it, secondary treatment's free. And I put that in all my contracts. If it's on me, it's free. And if I, for whatever reason, don't think it's on me, I'll say why. But in the 6 years that I've been doing this, any callback that I have gotten, it's just the moss had not let go yet, and it was as simple as flicking it off. Like literally with your fingertip flicking it off, and it came right off. But not going too far into the weeds here, what made me, so proud of that work is not only was the customer happy and I was able to meet all her, expectations and scheduling needs, she signed up for my maintenance program. So that means that, in next year, when that 2-year mark comes up, we're going to do an assessment and see how everything is, make recommendations on what I think needs to be done or not. Chances are with that, and this is back to the integrity side of things, the roof wash is probably not going to need to be done. Those generally last between 5 and 10 years, depending on how bad it is, direct sunlight and other. So that's probably not going to need anything. Really, the house wash is what the concern is, because that stained cedar, if you can keep all the organic junk off it, it's going to last a lot longer. So I think that would be my main focus. I don't think the deck's going to need to be done again. If they want the windows done, I'm happy to do that too. And yeah, so I was very proud of it because of all the work and planning that went into it. And then the customer was ultimately happy.
You used a term that I don't feel like a lot of people really get and just feel like it's kind of interesting if they've never heard it before. You said you won't use hard water. Now and it's from a well. Like, can you describe like the difference between that and like other water and like the risks with it? Like, I'm pretty sure it's like built up sediment or something that makes it like heavy, but I'm not sure. I don't know this kind of thing.
So to my understanding of it is that water that comes out of the ground has, well, let's say for simplest terms, because I am by no means a water expert, it has contaminants in it that when mixed with certain cleaning solutions, basically sodium hypochlorite, which is the industry standard for vinyl and concrete washing, the vast majority of our properties are that. You are going to run the risk of flash rusting. So I'm assuming it would have to be with, iron contaminants in the water just from being in the ground. And that's what causes the flash rusting.
I wanted to ask because you said you specifically won't use it. And, I feel like that's good for people just to know, free information to give out doesn't hurt anybody.
For sure. For sure. I want people to be as informed as possible.
And it justifies your reasoning as to why you, with your integrity, you will not use it for, you want you with your name on that job. You don't want, the effects of that kind of thing. You mentioned integrity being more important than any sale. Has there ever been a situation where you pointed a customer in a different direction, even when you could have taken the job?
Oh yeah. I had recently done a job that it was the difference between it being, $1,500 and over $3,000. And it was, house wash, a roof wash, deck cleaning, strip and stain. So the deck was just very dirty. Not a lot of direct sunlight in the back. It was shaded. There was still some leaves on it, probably from the fall. From a service standpoint, it was just very dirty looking. So like, moldy or maybe a little bit of mildew, just some staining from the tannins and the leaves, stuff like that. So they had said that they noticed some peeling on the railing and that they wanted the deck, cleaned and, a strip and seal. And I said, no problem. Went and, looked at it. And like I said, the deck was very dirty. So it hid actually how well it was still in great shape. So once it was cleaned, I sat back, let it dry, looked at everything. And I only found a couple of spots. And we're talking maybe a total of like a square foot in all the spots where there was a little bit of peeling. And I had said to the homeowner, I go, I don't think you need a strip and seal. It came out great. There's a couple of spots where you got some peeling. They had product left over. I said if they were comfortable doing it themselves, it would be a relatively easy, DIY project for them. And, the customer was happy with that and appreciated my honesty. They signed up for the every other year program.
So you didn't turn them away or anything? Like for anybody, you've never turned anybody away?
Oh, I turned them away from doing the strip and seal. I did not think the deck needed it at all. And I wasn't going to do it because that's how strong I felt about it. I didn't think, in my professional opinion, it needed to be done, minus that little area that I was talking about.
I completely misunderstood. Like I was going to make it as like you rejected a whole job entirely, not just like you were not doing like an oversell. Like they thought they needed more than they did and you like undercut it. So, okay. Yeah, no, that makes more sense to me now. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I made the correction because, they obviously still got charged for the deck cleaning, but I recommended heavily that not to do the strip and seal. It just didn't need it.
You said most pressure washing operations are more of a poorly done hobby than an actual business. What does it actually take to run this the right way?
So what I mean by that is that I'm not talking about the established companies. There are a ton of great established companies in the capital region. You know, you can get on Google or the internet and you can find the vast majority of them. The ones that I'm talking about is when you get on the small, more local apps like Nextdoor or Facebook, where it's really just a random guy in a truck or a minivan with a pressure washer that's just blasting everything. Those are the guys I'm talking about. Those are the guys that I don't think they ruin the industry. I think they ruin the perception of what a pressure washing professional is. And I think they ruin or set of like a false reality of what the actual expectations should be. And I'm not claiming to know everything, not even remotely close. I'm sure I still have so much more to learn about this industry and substrates and stuff like that. But I do believe I have a great handle on your everyday stuff. And going back to, just the random guy with the pressure washer, they go to Lowe's or Home Depot on a Memorial Day sale, they pick up a pressure washer, and all of a sudden they think they're in business. Those are the people that I'm talking about. I do understand everybody has to start somewhere, but I did research for almost 9 months before I even actually made my first pressure washer purchase, because I wanted to know, what do I expect? Or, for me as the provider, what should my customers expect? Because, having a 14 plus year lawn and landscape business, I've obviously learned a lot and just applied that learning process to the wash business. And I don't think those small companies are doing that. They're just going out there and trying to learn on the job. The margin for error is very small in this industry.
And I think that goes back to like when you said like the well water, you refuse to use it. I feel like a lot of people that just have that kind of thing, they'll just be like, "Oh, water source, let's hook that up." So I think that connects well with that question.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I'm not trying to like knock people, but you don't know what you don't know. You still have to find out. Like, I consider myself an expert in the services I do well. The services I provide, I consider myself an expert.
What surprised you most about building this into a legitimate operation that nobody warned you about getting in? I mean, you had the experience from like the lawn and maintenance, but like being the pressure washer, like what have you run into that you didn't expect?
I guess it's the struggle of, dealing with the client that was burned by the last guy, that was burned by someone who was just, one, their pricing was way off, and two, like the expectation was way off. I think that was the biggest hurdle. And the second biggest hurdle is sometimes customers, they don't like to hear the truth. And it usually comes when people are trying to sell their house. They haven't had like the roof cleaned in years or ever. A lot of people don't know that you should have it cleaned every 5 years. That's like the recommendation ballpark, and at least the roofing manufacturers that I've looked into, it's what ARMA, which is basically a roofing entity that makes all the recommendations and industry standards for roof cleaning. And expectation is essentially ruined from someone who just quite frankly doesn't know what they're doing. And I think that's a huge hurdle.
So handle with someone that's been burned before.
Correct. And it's easy in this industry. Like I said, the margin of error is so small.
What does a good week look like for you versus a stressful one?
A good week is the equipment all works as it should, the timing works as it should. I priced and estimated the time appropriately on jobs. That's a good week. A stressful week is, you have equipment breakdowns, you have logistical problems at properties. For example, sometimes you're working around other contractors, which is totally fine. The wash industry is kind of unique in a sense where, like, sure, other contractors can be there doing their thing, but it works best for everyone when we're completely out of each other's way.
How do you want a client to feel after working with Parkside?
I mean, I want them to be so happy they can't wait to tell all their friends. I also want them to be happy, but if they're telling all their friends, it's because they're happy with the outcome.
Yeah, nobody wants to give a bad recommendation because then it comes back on them as well.
Sure, it's like it doesn't look good for everyone.
What do you wish more homeowners understood before hiring someone for exterior cleaning work?
It's not that I wish they knew more about the actual service. It's I wish they knew more about what to look out for, right? So, and again, you can go on Facebook and Nextdoor and you can see thousands of different businesses. It's like, oh yeah, Mike's remodeling, but also does pressure washing, right? And if there's a Mike's remodeling, sorry, I'm not digging at you. That's just something that came to me. I don't even know if there's a Mike's remodeling, but they'll say, oh yeah, I'm insured, and they'll show their certificate of insurance. Sure, they're insured for remodeling houses, but they're probably not insured for pressure washing. And there's a reason for that. It's expensive. If it's, like I said, Parkside pressure washing, when you look at my certificate of insurance, it's Parkside pressure washing and the lawn guys. So there's no doubt that I'm not insured, or there's no doubt of my insurance for pressure washing. Okay. It's in the name on the policy. So, and I just see it all the time. Oh, he had insurance, but we found out he wasn't covered for pressure washing. Yeah, because it's a painting business or something like that. It's just a totally different set of insurance that you need to do this appropriately and to be properly insured. Another thing too that I want clients to know is that it's very rare that the cheapest price is going to be the best service. Okay. The only real instance that I can think of that, at least for me, is that I price a job to the job. I don't go to a ritzy neighborhood and say, oh yeah, I'm going to add another $200 because this is a ritzy neighborhood. That would be the only reason I would be the cheapest, is because I stuck to my integrity of, okay, this is a, 2,000 square foot house. So, that puts you at $400 and then $432 after tax. That's what the price is. I'm not jacking it up because it's Saratoga or, Niskayuna or Guilderland. It's my price is based on like logistics, not location. I want people to be able to compare for sure. I mean, who doesn't compare? And when is price not part of the decision-making process? You know what I mean? It's always part of it. It's just, is it worth it? And sometimes I find that portraying my value is difficult because of, clients have been burned in the past. Guys didn't know what they were doing, and then now it makes a bad name for everyone.
How do you handle a situation where a client has been burned by one of those fly-by-night operators before they found you?
I like to walk them through why I'm different than that. I'd like to walk them through like what to expect, the actual process, what happens when the process is performed. I want them to be comfortable, ask questions. I want them to fact check me. Like I want them to go Google what I said after, because like I want to prove to them that I'm not trying to sell them something that they don't need and that I know what I'm talking about.
If I don't know the right answer, I'm going to tell you, but even like I'll go find out the right answer.
Correct. I have a mentor who did it for many years and has since retired. And if I have a problem every so often and I'm really stumped, I go to him. I try to surround myself with people that have been there, done that. And I want to emulate them and have a successful business.
Where is Parkside headed and what are you building towards right now?
Well, Parkside is, headed, we're me, myself, and I, we're booked out until August right now, about second week in August. I really do want to focus on the maintenance side of it, keeping people's houses looking good. Obviously, everybody wants a repeat customer. I want to grow a little bit more into the window cleaning space because I think it just adds, it's like the icing on the cake for properties. Because even though I use an additive specifically for windows in my house wash mix, it only puts most of the windows at like 90% clean. And I think that if you're trying to sell your house, or if you just really want your house to look the best it can, that, I can provide that service.
And Windows, I feel like, is both ways. Like people look out the windows, but they also look at the windows because everybody's sneaky. Like they want to see like what's the action going on inside. So the windows, I feel like, draw more attention than anybody realizes.
Yes, especially with commercial storefronts, keeping your windows clean, sets a good tone to your business. I mean, who wants to walk into a business, especially a restaurant, that's got grody windows?
Have you ever worked with a commercial business before? Like I haven't. Like I don't think I've ever seen like a pizzeria or anybody getting like pressure washed. So that's an interesting thing. I've just never thought of that.
So one of the local organizations that helps, it's a non-governmental part of New York State. Um, they are on Washington Avenue, very, very high foot traffic area on a road, and they feel like their image is better when their windows are clean.
I've just never seen it. So like I just haven't thought of like commercial as having like pressure washing services actually done.
Yeah, it's usually not routine pressure washing. Like there's restaurants that want their sidewalks cleaned every so often, but the window cleaning side of this industry definitely bases on keeping restaurant windows clean. Certain types of like insurance agencies, like they all want to keep a presentable look to their properties. Whether they rent them or they own them, they want to have it looking good. Now, obviously not everywhere gets their windows clean, but the vast amount of successful businesses, I think that's part of their image.
What would you tell someone who is thinking about getting into this industry seriously, not as a side hustle?
Do your research. There is a plethora of Facebook groups. There's a plethora of, material on like YouTube and just the internet in general. There's tons of old forums that talk about techniques, and before there was YouTube and stuff like that, and really take the time to learn what you're trying to do. Now, I'm not saying learn every single service, but at least pick 3 services and learn about them. So for a pressure washing company, I would say learn how to house wash, learn how to roof wash, and learn about gutter cleaning. Okay, and what gutter brightening is as opposed to cleaning, because they're 2 totally separate services. Learn everything you can about those for a season. Practice on your house, or practice on, whoever will let you, like family members let me practice on their houses before I got started. I did a bunch of work for free just to get experience. And I think that set the learning curve, like it sped it right up. And that also prevents you from, making those quote rookie mistakes on people's property. Another equally important aspect is get appropriately insured. You don't want to be spraying a roof down and your gun falls out of your hand for whatever reason and it smashes a window that happens to be a custom order window, and now you're paying, you're going to go under because you got to come up with X amount of money that you weren't properly insured to do the job in the beginning. Those things, and it's also, looking out for your customer. Like if something happens, you're covered. If you get hurt on the property, that homeowner is covered. Because of another thing that I think homeowners overlook severely is the risk of having an uninsured contractor on your property. I've talked to agents, obviously trying to find insurance that fits my needs. And one of the big takeaways from that is a homeowner's insurance policy may not cover that uninsured contractor because it would be considered negligent on the homeowner for allowing someone who is not appropriately insured, or depending upon your area, if they're licensed or bonded. In New York, that's not a requirement, and there's no pressure washing license in New York. So if there is, please correct me, but it's not required to work. There's nothing that I've found on the New York State Department of State website for that, because obviously I would want that because that shows that I'm legitimate. But that turns into oh, I got my house washed for $100. The guy fell off a ladder that he shouldn't have been on to begin with. And now he's suing me. And now not only did I get dropped from my homeowner's insurance policy, they didn't cover it. So now, in a way, you're making it difficult to get more insurance because it's more expensive if you get dropped due to negligence,
No, it's
so
just an
that
interesting thing that I would never have connected those kind of dots. So yeah, no, that's really, really
that's why I
interesting.
stress, I mean, insurance is huge. Having it say like XYZ pressure washing on the policy, the homeowner now knows that they're insured for those related services.
Insurance itself is kind of try to find the ways around it, everything. So that, that's certainly not something that I think a lot of people would think about with their pressure washing services as well. That helps both people,
Yeah.
the business owner and the homeowner.
Another thing to add on to that too is property protection. So what I like to do is I like to tape all my outlets with painter's tape. So in that way, we're doing as much as we can, reasonably as much as we can to prevent starting an electrical fire, because sodium hypochlorite, the main product for cleaning, is a conductor. So if enough gets in an outlet, that can start a fire.
So that's certainly something, though, having a fire start from a pressure washer service is certainly
Yes.
not something that I would have thought about.
Exactly, because everything's getting sprayed with fresh water, but it's usually after the fact when it's like evaporating is when it happens.
Okay. Okay, that makes more sense, but still not something I would have ever thought of.
So if I'm sorry, customers out there, if I forget to leave the painter's tape on your outlets, but just know I was trying to not burn your house down.
Where can people find you, and what is the best way to reach out?
The absolute best way to reach out to me is just strictly through my phone number, which is area code 518-275-5135. Again, 518-275-5135. Parkside has an Instagram page, a Facebook page, and a TikTok page. We also have a website, parksidepressurewashing.com. If you don't want to call, totally fine. There's a spot where you can fill out an email request, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Those are the best ways, is just calling me.
What is your range? Like, I know you're in the capital region, but I'm sure you won't go to like Canada.
For me, at least north, the cutoff is like basically Saratoga area. South, we're talking like Selkirk, a little bit in the Catskill. And then, east, we're talking like Rensselaer County, and then west as far as like Amsterdam, Montgomery County. Like those are kind of the cutoffs. With the pressure washing industry, route density is not as important as with, let's say, for example, lawn mowing. The lawn maintenance side of it, like that, having the tight route is what allows you to obviously be profitable, but also to price appropriately. If I had to drive 20 miles in between lawns, it would be exponentially more expensive than if a local guy did it.
Is there anything else you want to add to this interview?
I'm always happy to set customers on the right path, even if it's not with me. If a customer wants to give, my opinion on something, I'm happy to give it, and I'm happy to point them in, what I think is the right direction, even if they don't go with me. That's how steadfast I am on people having the right information.
And one thing I just want to point out too is like you were very quick to respond to me. So like even like when I just made this initial contact, like I called you and you answered really quickly and everything. So that's very important for people. They're not going to be left on red.
Yeah, it's part of my livelihood. I want to be that top-notch customer service.
Do you have any questions for me?
How did you start Clark Bookkeeping? Like, what made you want to get into that?
Well, it wasn't that I wanted to just dive right into numbers and everything like that, but I have a friend who came over during the Albanian Kosovoan War. He came over not being able to speak English. He went over to New York City. He learned contracting eventually, like how to like do maintenance and repairs and everything in a house. Several years later, he moved up to the Albany area. We worked together at a warehouse, and I always liked making spreadsheets because I don't know why, but he wanted to go into business together. So, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted my own separate entity, so I wasn't limited. So I got his business completely started and everything for him to be able to do his contractor work. And I do everything behind the scenes. I do his bookkeeping. I made his logo, our logos, and I got everything set up. And I enjoyed that process, and I didn't want to be limited in what I was able to do. So that was how I came to be. And I like enjoyed um I have like OCD and organization, compartmentalize things. So
Yep, you
it
have
just
the
kind of like
sickness.
I got the sickness. And so it kind of just like fell in and it sounded good, try to work from home, do something on the side. Every business needs it, whether they do it themselves or they outsource it or something. And like you, I want to be fair and everything. Like I'm not going to overcharge somebody. I do it based on what their transaction counts are. Like I'm not going to just like look at a thing and be like, oh, you made $10 million this year. I'm going to charge you $10,000 a month. It's like, no, it's you were this active. That's how active I have to be. So that's where it's fair. I feel like, but yeah, no, it seemed fair. It seemed like a necessary service, and business owners want to work on their own business. And I might as well put my OCD and whatever to work. So
Yeah.
about to sign off. This is Clark Bookkeeping and Parkside Pressure Wash.